foot 9 inches tall. Kamala, 385 pounds. Kamala, the coolest man known to professional wrestling today. Kamala, the Ugandan Giant.
In the carnival world of professional wrestling, where myth and mayhem collide, few characters were as terrifying or as tragically misunderstood as Kamala the Ugandan Giant. Towering, painted in tribal symbols, and led to the ring like a beast on a leash, Kamala was more than just a villain. He was a living spectacle. Introduced to American audiences in the early 1980s, he was billed as a savage cannibal from the jungles of Uganda, a monstrous creation at the crossroads of wrestling theater and tabloid horror. Inspired in part by real-world rumors surrounding Ugandan dictator Idi Amin, Kamala was a character built on fear, mystery, and the dark fascination Western media had with the uncivilized other. But behind the paint and the myth was James Harris, a quiet man from Mississippi who never ate flesh or lived in a jungle. He was a truck driver, a blues singer, a father, and ultimately a performer who stepped into a role shaped by fantasy and real-life fears. Before he ever played a Ugandan cannibal on television, James Harris was a soft-spoken man from Senatobia, Mississippi, born in 1950 and raised in a segregated and economically challenged South. He began his wrestling career in the late 1970s, training under Bobo Brazil and working in small promotions across the U.S., under names like Sugar Bear Harris and Ugly Bear Harris. Despite his impressive size, he stood over 6 feet 5 inches and weighed well over 350 pounds. Harris struggled to find a character that resonated with audiences. He was often booked as a generic big man, and though physically imposing, he lacked a hook that made him stand out in a crowded industry full of colorful personalities. The turning point came in 1982, when Harris connected with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett in Memphis. The character of Kamala was portrayed as a fearsome Ugandan headhunter, adorned with tribal face and body paint inspired by a Frank Frazetta fantasy painting. His backstory claimed he had once served as a bodyguard to the deposed Ugandan dictator Idi Amin, before being discovered deep in the African jungle. Idi Amin ruled Uganda from 1971 to 1979 and became internationally infamous for human rights abuses, political repression, and bizarre public statements. In the wake of his fall from power, Western tabloids and news outlets were filled with horror stories of mass murder, body mutilation, and allegations of cannibalism. Amin was portrayed as not just a tyrant, but a monster, a symbol of chaos and evil. In his 1997 memoir State of Blood, the inside story of Idi Amin, Henry Kiemba, a former Ugandan health minister who served in Amin's cabinet, argues that the dictator's grotesque reputation was not purely a Western invention. Kiemba recounts Amin's own disturbing boasts, writing, "On several occasions he has boasted to me and others that he has eaten human flesh." Though these accounts remain controversial and difficult to verify, they help cement Amin's global image as a cannibalistic tyrant, an image that bled directly into the creation of Kamala the Ugandan Giant, whose wrestling backstory cast him as Amin's former bodyguard. The name itself, Kamala, was chosen to sound African, though it bore no authentic linguistic meaning in any Ugandan dialect. Lawler and Jarrett paired Harris with a handler who would lead him to the ring like a beast, adding to the image of Kamala as an unpredictable, uncivilized force of nature. The gimmick was horrifying, captivating, and it worked. Kamala arrived in Memphis to immediate attention. The audience had never seen anything quite like him. His chest and stomach were painted with stars and moons. He slapped his belly before delivering a splash from the second rope. He seemed unable to understand the rules of wrestling, often attempting to pin opponents face down. Everything about Kamala screamed otherness. His handlers emphasized his supposed inability to speak English, and the commentators leaned into the idea that Kamala didn't understand the world he was performing in. He was billed as hailing from the jungles of Uganda, discovered by explorers, and brought to the US to wreak havoc in the ring. His success in Memphis opened doors nationally. Kamala soon became a top attraction in world-class championship wrestling in Texas and Mid-South wrestling. He was often the monster of the month, brought into territories to challenge the top babyface, lose decisively, and vanish until the next territory run. Kamala's character was not about complexity or moral ambiguity. He was pure spectacle, pure fear, and pure myth. At the insistence of Andre the Giant, Kamala entered the World Wrestling Federation, the largest and fastest-growing promotion in the country in 1984. His persona fit perfectly into the WWF's landscape, which at the time was filled with larger-than-life characters and global archetypes. Kamala was positioned as a monster heel, a fearsome villain brought in to challenge the company's biggest stars. Over the years, he would have multiple runs with the company, becoming a staple attraction across several eras, from the colorful golden era of the 1980s, where he clashed with icons like Hulk Hogan and Andre himself, to the early 1990s New Generation era, facing legends such as Bret Hart and The Undertaker. One of his most memorable moments came at Survivor Series in November 1992, where he lost to The Undertaker in the first ever televised casket match, an event that added to his mystique. By January 1993, a storyline shift saw Kamala being mistreated by his handlers Kim Chi and Harvey Whippleman, which sparked the audience's sympathy for the first time. This led to a major character turn, as Kamala broke free from their control and aligned himself with Reverend Slick, marking his transformation into a babyface for the first time in his WWF career. His career allowed him to work in international promotions as well, including stints in Japan, where his unique persona found an audience. Harris maintained the Kamala character across all of these appearances, making him one of the most consistent and recognizable personas in professional wrestling through the 1980s and into the 1990s. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Harris began to wind down his wrestling career. He made occasional appearances for independent promotions, fan conventions, and even returned for a few special WWF later WWE cameos. Off camera, James Harris was nothing like Kamala. Soft-spoken, kind, and shy, Harris had little control over the creative direction of the character that made him famous. He once remarked that he did not fully understand the Ugandan cannibal angle until fans started asking him if he really ate people. Though he was proud of his fame and the places wrestling had taken him, Harris also harbored resentment over the way he was portrayed and compensated. Beginning in 1993, Harris wrote, performed, and produced his own music. He wrote over 100 songs. Some discuss his frustration with the working conditions he experienced in the wrestling industry, most notably the low pay. Like many wrestlers of his era, Harris struggled with health issues after years of physical strain. He was diagnosed with diabetes, which eventually led to the amputation of both legs. Despite these challenges, Harris remained active in the wrestling community. He released a blues album, appeared on podcasts, and authored an autobiography titled Kamala Speaks in 2015, offering fans a behind-the-scenes look at his life and the wrestling business. James Harris passed away on August 9, 2020, after contracting COVID-19 while dealing with ongoing health conditions. His passing was met with tributes from fans, wrestlers, and promoters who remembered Kamala as one of wrestling's most unique and unforgettable characters. Bret Hart penned a long tribute for his friend, stating, "Unlike his heel character, he was one of the friendliest, nicest, happy-go-lucky guys I ever knew in pro wrestling." The legacy of Kamala the Ugandan Giant is one of creativity and impact. The character was one of the few during his era to become instantly recognizable without ever needing to speak a word. Through physical performance alone, his look, mannerisms, and presence, Kamala became a fixture in the wrestling world and left a lasting impression on fans worldwide. James Harris brought the character to life with commitment and charisma, creating a persona that stood the test of time. While Kamala may have been rooted in a specific era of wrestling history, the character's significance endures. His journey from Mississippi to the world stage, and his ability to connect with audiences across generations ensures that Kamala the Ugandan Giant will remain a respected and remembered name in the annals of professional wrestling history. Kamala was never truly a monster. He was a man performing one. Built from the fears and fascinations of the time, the character reflected not only wrestling's appetite for spectacle, but also society's willingness to blur fact and fiction, humanity and myth. James Harris, the man behind the paint, brought dignity to a role that could have easily been reduced to stereotype. And while the Kamala character may now be seen as outdated or controversial, it remains a powerful example of how professional wrestling has long served as a mirror for the cultural anxieties and storytelling instincts of its era. In remembering Kamala, we're not just recalling a gimmick, we're reckoning with the uneasy line between entertainment and real-life controversy, and honoring the quiet man who carried it all on his shoulders.